Right then, so we put the video out there last week sometime, and we got a decent response. A few people in the YouTube comments and the Facebook comments left us the numbers, sent some email stuff. We got back in touch with them, so we'll put up the thumbs up and thanks for who they are, 'cause there's been a few. Just give Mel something else to do now. So we weren't completely out of options when we put that video up, but we just wanted to see if anybody'd seen anything like this. We've had a few people run these exact engines saying, I've had no problems whatsoever. We had a look the day after that, which was the plan anyway. We probably put the video out a day early, but I weren't in the day after, so we need to just get it out there. And it seemed like all of the resonance, all the bouncing, whatever, were happening at about 4,200, 4,300 RPM, which makes sense. It's about that sort of RPM. We sort of got just past that as it seemed to fail. Not sure exact RPM it failed every time. Not even bothered looking at that. We thought, we'll have a look first. We're looking about and having a good think, having a look at what people had said and sort of trying to decide which were easiest. The easiest one would be just literally slapping this on, which is a manual tension off a 1.8 turbo, but we need to make a new bracket here. This is like the bracket that stops it twisting and going wherever it wants once it's tight. So, because it's just a studded old that on, it's not good. So that's going to go on to Scott's car and see if that makes any difference, but that would be probably stop it maybe getting exponentially and getting worse, but it's not going to stop the fact that there's a resonance there. So while my car were getting an engine, it was easy to take a few bits off and have a look. These are the balance shafts. So you just smash these caps off and then get your big hammer and just hit them until they come out basically. So these are spinning at twice engine speed and they're quite, it's all up into bits, and they're quite heavy. But there's no oil going to them, they're not like a balance shaft like on the A4s that fail and then your engine dies. These are literally just a gear-driven shaft, or a pair of gear-driven shafts that just knocked them out and away you go. So we've just put that on the dyno now, so we'll go over there and have a look. So, I've got the car on the dyno here. I don't know why the belt cover's back on, but it's been off already. We've not filmed what I'm going to talk about yet, but we've seen it and witnessed it. This is a brand new engine. We've took the balance shafts out, run it up on the dyno. It's getting running at the minute, so we've not run it really hard. The flapping seems to have moved down to about 3,800 RPM, and it's much less aggressive in what it's doing, so the belt's never going to be perfectly stationary anyway. That's just not going to happen. So when you're revving it up on the spot, you can see some of it. It just gets worse with load. So obviously, higher the gear, worse it's going to get. So on the dyno can replicate that. So when Paul were revving it up out there, he weren't 100% happy with it. So we did put the fluid damper on there, which are quite expensive. I've never been a big fan of doing them because people always used to talk about how they made a single mass flywheel quieter and stuff, and I don't think they did when we tried them before. But we never had this problem. To make that fit, we've had to put a 5 rib belt on instead of a 6 rib belt. And one thing to note, when we were doing this testing, we took the alternator belt off, and that made things go even worse. So not having a belt on there does make a big difference because this is all designed to have load on. So what we think's happening with the balance shafts, obviously they're designed to be operating at the most efficient and get rid of the vibrations at maybe, what's this going to run at, 1,800 RPM or something like that. That's going to be where it's cruising most of its time, so that'll be where they're so tuned to be, because it's literally just like tuning a guitar or an instrument. It's just getting the vibrations and accepting them outside of the normal operating conditions. So we think this is going to be the fix. Just the problem is, to fix this on Scott's car and the Golf, it's the engine's out again. So we'll try the pulley on Scott's and just see if that's a quick fix, because Scott revved the engine more. We had a look at the data, which will put some of that up. And the reason why it's happened on my car more than it's happened on the Golf when Scott drove it and on Scott's TT is purely the RPM window that we're using. Scott, generally, he seems to change up later, so he's revving it more, but then he'll let the rev drop down more in sort of slower speed corners as well. So when we looked at the histogram, Scott were revving his over a wider band and I were in a sort of narrower band, sort of just around where it were happening. But the peak on the histogram was showing that literally where this were happening is where I was most of the time. So not thinking I was saving the engine by not revving it, were probably worse than revving it. So I think we're going to give them the revs back as well. We'll do some more work on Scott's car, and then we're going racing this Sunday anyway. So we'll go racing, and then we'll figure out whether this has been a good fix or whether we need to scratch his head some more and get one of the other spare engines out that we've made a mess of. So anyway, so it seems, shows what it's done. Whole sort. Yeah. So it seems we've not fixed the Cambelt issue by taking the balance shafts out. 20-minute race and that's happened. But we can see with Scott's it looks good, but we're having a proper check.
There's the rest of the roller. So, bit of an update on the latest TT sort of Cambelt problems. The last one were a little bit different to the usual. Usually just the Cambelt fails and that's all you can really see. This one, however, the little idler pulley at the top, usually sits about there, ended up destroying itself. So we've spoken to a few people on what to do with it. They've basically suggested try and go bigger with all the idler pulleys. Because obviously the bigger you go with it, the slower the bearing should be spinning. So what we've got is replaced the little one that's failed with quite a bigger unit. Got a bit of a bigger bearing in it, a bit more sturdy. The other one that was quite small is that one that just sits under the tensioner on that one. Gone quite a bit bigger with that. The other thing that we've done is we've gone away from the spring tensioner that is on pretty much all VAG TDI engines, pretty much same kind of style tensioner, to a manual one, which hopefully, fingers crossed, will sort us little Cambelt problems out for now. Whether or not it's the permanent fix that we leave on it, or whether it's just for now till we can sort out this weird harmonic problem, vibration problem that we're having. We'll have to see hopefully later on in the season. Obviously with Ryan we have got to decide whether or not we put the balance shafts back in it or not, which is a bit of a nightmare to do because we've got to pull the engine back out to do that. But yeah, fingers crossed, I'll get this back on the car hopefully tonight, dyno it tomorrow, and we have an update from there.
So hopefully Paul's description helped you to understand what we've had to do to get this to where we are. So a few little bits that he maybe missed, we'll put a clip in. The bottom pulley on these is square. Which a few people in the comments had mentioned that. Not sure whether that was causing the belt to be doing the flapping it's doing, but anyway, obviously we've changed the bottom pulley, the tensioner, which the tensioner's off like an old ABF 16 valve Mark II, Mark III Golf, so quite an old one. And the pulleys are all off certain various Volkswagen stuff, but they've all had to have spacers behind them, which took a little bit of work to get, and we've had to machine a little bit off this pump bracket. But it seems to have fixed the problem. We do have a little bit of issues with it wobbling a little bit around this area, sort of underneath the pump, but I don't think there's anything else we can do with that. There's obviously another roller under there, so it's not really going anywhere. It's not like it's catching on edge like it were on that. But when we did put this back together, I'd not noticed any problems, obviously, when I sort of retired from, well, not even retired from the race. Finished the race last time, no leaks or anything, but the fuel pump had got a crack in it.
Where are you coming from? It's got a diesel leak.
So we think that's something to do with the balance shaft. The vibrations going through this engine with the balance shafts removed are not nice at all. We have stripped an engine down and had a look, and there's a massive variance in the big end of the conrods, which obviously the balance shaft shouldn't really be opposing them forces, but it must do. So we might end up getting to the point where we're building these engines, which we chose the CUAA engine because we weren't building them, and now we're going to maybe have to start. So not sure whether that's a good thing or not. The other thing we've got on the dyno, and the front seals decided to start leaking, so we've got to change that. But the engine's coming out to the balance shafts anyway, so this will be about sixth time maybe this has had an engine in since the winter rebuild, which is very, or at least the engine out and the engine back in, which is very, very annoying. But anyway, yeah, so a week left until we need to be packing up to go racing. There's still tons to do, so